I saw there was a guy posted on a Snapchat that he was fishing in the cracks. He pulled up a lake lizard out of the cracks.
What's a lake lizard?
That's what they call a jackfish, I guess.
Oh,
A lake
okay.
lizard. Hey, what's up? It's Brandon with NCCTV, and today we're on site at Regina Beach. We are working on our foundation, and we've had Matt, who's a subcontractor with BL & Sons, working on the foundation. We've got the piles in, we've got the strip footing down, we've got the weeping tile in, and we are starting to prepare our walls for our foundation. Let's talk with Matt, and we'll go through what that process looks like. So tell us, when you came to site, obviously the site's been prepped. We've got this scraped out and prepped for the foundation to go down. The other day when we came out here, you were laying out the forms for the strip footing that goes around the perimeter. Explain what that strip footing does and how it's kind of installed, I guess.
So this type of footing, because it's supported by piles, you don't want the wall touching anywhere but the piles. So we have void form in between the piles. And so essentially the footing just becomes a base for us to work off of and set our forms up. And you can see the lines that are chalked, that represents the inside of the foundation. So you can get it nice and precise.
Mm-hmm. That void form, that just creates a hollow cavity inside the concrete so that you're not, I guess, using an unnecessary amount of concrete?
No, it's more for, because of the soil types we have around here, and anywhere that experiences frost, soils heave, especially in Regina. With the clay type soil now out here at Regina Beach, it's not as clay, it's more sand. Basically allows the ground to heave up to 6 inches in frost deformation without ever putting pressure on the wall.
So that void form, that white foam there,
it's crushable.
It creates a little cavity so that the soil can kind of push up in that spring, thaw, winter without damaging the foundation of the home.
Yeah, that's correct. And you'll also see the rebar has hooks in it. Not everybody does that, but the hooks again help hold the foundation wall down to the pile in the event that it pushes
movement.
more than 6 inches.
Yeah. So once we've got this strip footing, so strip footing's down, we've got the void form in, we've got the weeping tile in, we've got the rock around the perimeter to kind of keep that weeping tile clean. So next steps are to start chalking out the walls, which you've already done, and start stacking up the foundation walls. On this project, how high is our foundation?
These walls are 4 feet. We'll be using, our forms will be set horizontal. That doesn't really matter for anyone other than the people building it.
Yeah.
But, so then we'll stand our forms and throw in our ties, which is what stops the forms from spreading with the pressure of the concrete. And then rebar starts to get tied up in there.
Okay, and then on this, obviously we've got a 4-foot kind of crawl space. So obviously this isn't living space underneath here. We've got all this sand, soil, and we've got this sump placed right here. So what is the plan, I guess, with this surface?
Like you said, it's not a living space. So down in here will be a skim coat of concrete, simply to protect the plastic that's being laid down as a waterproofing. And any water that manages to get in will slope towards the sump here to be pumped out. Okay,
so we're going to be putting a swaled floor in this foundation, which has a mesh system, a polythermal barrier, and then just basically a hand troweled concrete, all traveling back to this drain, so that if in the event that any moisture or water does infiltrate this space, it's going to travel to this sump pit where it can get pumped out. We're quite a bit above elevation, so the chances of this getting any water is probably pretty unrealistic, but obviously in the event that water makes its way all the way up here, it's going to find a way to get out.
Or from the street, but if you keep your foundation properly graded away, the water can't see in anyway.
I know that a few years ago everyone's like, you got to do an ICF foundation. What do you think the differences are between that? Would you rather go with a traditional formed basement or with an ICF basement? I've heard other subcontractors or consumers or customers talk about some of the downsides with ICF, where there could be hollow voided spots that you can't get to, blowouts and all those kind of things. So in your opinion, which is better, a traditional concrete foundation or an ICF foundation?
I think when ICFs were invented, obviously they were designed to have better R value, but you can accomplish that R value in other ways. The forms themselves are one-time use, and they're very expensive. On an average basement, you're looking at $20,000 simply for the forms.
Wow.
So you're basically saying you can't have somebody come in, if you're looking for the air infiltration package, you can probably get someone to spray foam to the same level of R value for less than 20,000.
Right.
Contractors like myself don't like them because while they do go together easily, they do tend to blow out, so you have to use a weaker vibrator to consolidate the concrete, which means you're more prone to having voids.
So that a void would be a hollow cavity that has no concrete.
Yeah, or not properly consolidated concrete. We call it honeycombs because you can see the individual rocks and
Right.
the cream hasn't filled in. Small honeycombs are okay, and that's the other brings me to the other thing. You can't see the wall
Right.
when it's finished.
You can't see it, so you don't know.
You don't know.
So if we built this cabin out of Regina Beach where there's lots of ground movement, what was that, 4 years ago? 4 years ago, there was like 3 houses that blew up because of the ground movement. So what happened was there's gas lines that are obviously providing all of these homes with heat, because that's how we heat these spaces in the winter, and the ground's moving constantly out here because there's fault lines and moisture all over the place. So what happened was the houses were moving, or the ground was moving, and gas lines obviously shifted. Gas was leaking everywhere. Somebody maybe lit their barbecue and boom, you had a couple houses that blew up. So with an ICF foundation, obviously that's going to be problematic because your foundation's potentially weakened. You've got missing parts of concrete. And obviously it sounds like a couple more things would come up as well. So you're leaning towards a traditional foundation would be obviously a little bit more, well, it sounds like a lot more beneficial than an ICF system.
If you're a homeowner that wants to try doing them themselves, a new set of forms, wood forms, doesn't make sense. And so if you're trying to do it on your own, but there again, they make them seem easier to put together than they actually are. You still have to know what you're doing to avoid blowout.
And do you really want to do a basement foundation yourself? Like let's get real here. We're building a house. This house is a couple $100,000. If we build this investment and DIY our foundation, that's probably the first mistake.
People think the internet has all the answers nowadays, but there's still something to be said about experience.
Let's just take a look at this strip footing that's been installed. I see you have this line chalked out. That represents obviously the inside wall. And so step one, we've got our strip footing here. We've got our rock encapsulating the weeping tile. We've got these lines marked out, and we've got our rebar penetrating into the wall. Obviously, we've got to build our forms and get our rebar all tied in there. How long do you think this foundation would take you to get ready for concrete?
2 to 3 days, depending on how things go.
Yeah.
An average basement takes 3 to 4 days, and this is short walls, so you've got a little bit less rebar to tie.
Yeah, but all the same process, right?
Same process.
Yeah, just shorter.
These boards here that you see are actually what the framing will be attached to. We call them ladder troughs or H-block troughs.
Okay.
And that's because they're built with 2 side rails, and those will go on top of the wall and be embedded in the concrete.
Okay.
So when your house gets
Right,
framed,
that's how they attach it to those.
Nail into something.
Right.
Nail into concrete, obviously.
Right. All right, cool. Well, thanks for taking the time to explain this foundation process with us today. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video and tune in next time.